All right, so here I am. This is the Field of Dreams plot. This is that little tiny narrow spot going up along the edge of the corn, the switchgrass. And on the other side of the corn here, I got about a 1/4 acre section of buckwheat. I'll be planting these two areas tonight along with maybe one or two other spots I'll include in this video as well. This stuff is about chest high in the highest spots out there and looking pretty nice. The other side over there, you'll see when I get over there, there's a few more weeds over there, but for the most part, this buckwheat smothers out almost all the weeds. You can see a couple weeds right here, these lamb's quarters plants. These should crush down all right, but sometimes in certain areas, these weeds don't crush down as nice as the buckwheat. You look in here, I'll broadcast my seed. It'll land right on the soil. Just perfect for germination. Hopefully we do get some rain. I don't know. There's chances of rain tomorrow morning and on Friday evening, so not the greatest chance, but it's almost August and I just got to get that seed out here so next time we do get rain, it'll at least be out here ready to pop and start growing. So yeah, I'm gonna get a little footage of seeding this, and I'll crush this right away, drive over to the other side of the corn, and I'll seed that and crush that right away and head out to some of the other plots and start doing that stuff too. So this is what I'll be planting. I got my two favorite blends, Whitetail Institute Wintergreens, Antler King's Honey Hole, and this is just straight tillage radish that I bought that I'm going to mix in because neither one of these mixes have any of it. And like I said in previous years, the tillage radish is definitely by far the most attractive brassica, September and even, most of October as well. So I'll just quick run through what they got in here. You can see they got about 33% of this is rape, trophy rape. They got about 20% dwarf Essex rape. So a lot of people say they don't like dwarf Essex rape because it doesn't get as big, but I've planted just straight honey hole and it's produced and lasted just as long as the Wintergreens, this is about a $20 half acre bag. These are usually the Whitetail Institute. I think this usually runs like 35 to 45 bucks, somewhere in that range, so it's almost twice as expensive. And it's got about 7% purple top turnips and whatever that Bayou kale, Winfred rape. So this blend has about a little bit more purple top turnips. If that's what you want, this blend definitely has more purple top turnips than the Wintergreens. The Wintergreens has about the same thing. You can see it's got about 50% kale, and it's got a little bit of dwarf Essex rape, tall tine turnip. It's got a little bit longer list of stuff here, and then basically 1% purple top turnip, trophy rape. That must be the same rape that they had in here. But yeah, it's got a little bit better kale varieties. Those two kale varieties right there is what probably bumps up this price a little bit. But basically, I just mix all three of them together, about half and half with these. I might go a little heavier on the Wintergreens because I only have one of these bags with me. And I got, I'm going to mix this about 1/3 of each. 1/3 radish, 1/3 this, 1/3 that. So that's what I plan on doing here. I'll show you what it looks like when I get it all mixed up here. So this is what it's looking like, all mixed up here. You can see all those brown ones are obviously the tillage radish. The red ones are the honey hole, and the blue, green, and yellows, those are all Wintergreens. All right, here I am on the other side of the corn now. Got this section of buckwheat I'm going to plant today. I might as well do this area while I'm here too. I wanted to do one of our drier fields out there yet, but I'll see what I got time for tonight to include in this video. Yeah, this looks really nice. This stuff's almost getting too tall to really seed into. It's kind of a pain. Yeah, I'm going to start seeding all this here, and we'll start crushing here in a little bit. All right, so I just finished up seeding all 3 of those spots. You can still see I got a good amount of seed left. Here, I'll go show you what the spacing looks like. And like I've said in the past, you know, with brassicas, less is more, because if you plant too thick, they get shin high, they're yellow and stunted, and nothing really eats them. If you plant too thin, there's just a few gaps in between them and they get monstrous. And I've actually noticed that when they're thinner and there's like space for there's actually like more space for the deer to walk around in the plot, and it almost seems like they use the plot more. When everything's like knee high and they got like the perfect population, and it's just super thick like this, they actually don't, in my experience, at least early season, they don't really walk through. Like there was no deer trails through this buckwheat. The same scenario when you got a real nice thick lush brassica stand, they don't really start eating on it unless they have to. But when you have a thin brassica plot with, you know, spots for them to walk around and browse on every angle of each plant, and it's just probably because the plants become more palatable and higher nutrition content or something, because they got more room to grow. Anyways, let's go down here and take a look at the seeds here. You see we got 1 seed here, got 1 right here. That's a wintergreen seed. That's a radish seed right there. And oh, here's another radish seed. So I got like 4 seeds in like 1 square foot, maybe a little bit thick. Right here I got 2 seeds right there. Not really seeing much else. Right here's 1. You can see like from those seeds to that's like probably like 8 to 10 inches. We got a little seed right there, another seed right there. If anything, it might be slightly thick, but if we don't get rain, some of these seeds won't germinate, so. So here's the aftermath. This looks like a lot of thatch, but this stuff really dries down quick and pretty much just dissolves into nothing, dust. One thing I'm worried about is, you see these lamb's quarters plants? You see how these don't crush as good? Well, there's a whole bunch of them right here that are still like somewhat standing, and these are pretty tough weeds to kill with just glyphosate. All right, so here we are in the flag plot. You can see I got my rows of corn and rows of soybeans, and this is where the stars would be of the flag. This buckwheat and soon to be brassica. You can see up here it's like really short, you know, it's really dry up here. But in there it's again about chest high and a few weeds popping up in there. But overall it looks pretty good. I'm literally just getting ready to seed this. I got my seeder here. There's actually a few soybeans left over in here. From when I originally broadcasted soybeans in here to help, you know, take off some browse off of the little bit of beans I do have in here. And then you know, a couple weeks later I disked it up and put in the buckwheat. But yeah, looks pretty good. Well, out here doing a quick little update of the brassicas. They're looking really good. This is that narrow strip along the corn. I'll take you to the other side of the corn after this. The spacing on the plants looks about perfect. Not too thin, not too thick. I mean, in certain areas it does look too thin right now. But you got a plant here, plant there. Kind of nothing. There might be something in here. Right here's a couple smaller ones. You can see, got a pretty good kill on the weeds. Occasionally you'll see some weeds here and there that are still kind of alive. Got some buckthorn coming, or buckwheat germinating coming back. Some of that stuff might have had seed on it already. So I don't see a ton of buckwheat in here, so that shouldn't really be a problem. Yeah, I'll take you up to the other side of this corn here in a second. Over here, I probably got a few more weeds that survived, especially along this edge here. Tall lamb's quarters weeds like right here. Sometimes these are hard to kill, but I mixed the glyphosate extra strong when I sprayed these plots because I noticed there was a ton of weeds out here. So I just, I wanted to get a good kill on the weeds. Same thing. This is probably, about right for spacing. I see a ton of tillage radish. That's what all these bigger ones are. These things are always the first ones to pop up, and they really grow quick. But some of these other forage rape and kales, like these ones, they're a little bit slower to take off. This right here is probably a purple top turnip. You can see it's kind of got like it's hard to see on the camera, but the little fuzzy, the leaves are kind of fuzzy along with the stems. See that kind of? So those are some purple top turnips, most likely. And like right here, must be a spot where I just didn't broadcast enough seed, because this stuff was chest high right in here. Looks good right there, looks good right here. I don't see a ton of stuff coming up right here, but there is a little bit in here, but that's okay. I'd rather have a plot being too thin than too thick. And then I got this section up here. This is a new spot. Well, it was a food plot, but we made it a lot bigger this year. Extended it out towards the field here. So this is all first year food plot ground. And I'm surprised that there's hardly any seeds coming up, but they're definitely in here. Could have probably broadcasted a little bit thicker, but that's all right. And this being a first year plot, prior to this, see all these buckthorn stumps? It was just shaded out ground. So there's very, very little weed seed in here. Probably take 2-3 years before we start getting some serious weed problems in here too. But yeah, this is looking really good. Anything green in here is all brassica. I don't see any weeds coming up whatsoever. A couple buckthorn stumps I gotta cut out of here yet. But basically from here over was the existing plot. This plot I've had here for probably maybe 3 to 5 years, at least 3, probably 4 or 5 years. And again, we still don't have a ton of weed issues in this plot. We got a few extra weeds over here, a little bit more than the new spot. All right, so here's this little spot up here on the hill. Quite dry up here on this side. We're kind of sloping up. This really isn't the best ground. I actually had quite a few soybeans in here that survived. Like I said, originally, when planting this corn and beans here, I put this whole section into broadcasted beans to hopefully take off some of the browse off those beans down there that I planned on leaving. And then I disked it up like, probably 2-3 weeks later to plant the buckwheat, and some beans survived the disking, and some beans survived all the buckwheat growing up and all the buckwheat getting crushed. So obviously they're Roundup ready beans, so that's why the spray didn't kill them. But yeah, that's going to actually be a plus. I didn't think I'd have this many beans in here after disking and crushing, so that's pretty crazy. And mixed amongst all this, I got little brassicas coming up too, so it looks really good. The spacing on these brassicas looks about right. Not too thin, not too thick. Got some weeds coming in on this lower end, but in all reality, it looks pretty good. Tillage radish, forage rape, some purple top turnips right here. So yeah, looks pretty good. Yeah, I'll update you on these 3 plots. Well, I guess it's only two plots, but that one plot, first area's got 2. It's kind of divided between 2 plots. But yeah, I'll update you on this stuff in at least probably 2 more weeks here, see what it looks like. So, all right, so here we are out here for the final update. This plot's looking pretty good. I'll take you over to that little spot right after this, right around the corner there, that first year spot. You see, we already got a decent amount of browse on the tillage radish, and even some of the forage rape and kales out here are browsed on. Mainly a lot of tillage radish browse right now though, like I expected. We got probably close to another month of growth out here. So I would expect these brassicas to get actually quite a bit bigger, because the second month is when they really start to put on the volume. The first month it takes them a little bit to get established usually. You can see some of this tillage radish is flowering out, but they're still browsing on that too. Last year and the last couple years, I haven't had the tillage radish do that, so it must be just a different seed supplier. I bought it at the same place. Piece of glass right there. But yeah, I got really good spacing on the brassicas. Certain areas probably a little too thin. Now I could come through here and fill all this in, all these gaps in with winter rye, but this is an area we like to work up every year, and I don't want to have to deal with the rye being so tall here next spring. So I'm gonna just let it go, because I don't really plan on doing no-till right here next year. But this little plot coming up around the corner here, I'm gonna seed this whole thing into rye today, because I plan on doing that into no-till next year. So that way I'll have the rye there ready to go. Yeah, these brassicas, they're gonna get real nice, really huge. Here's a purple top turnip. It's already probably this close to the size of a baseball. Not quite as big as a baseball yet, but in a week it probably will be. That thing will probably turn into a softball or bigger. Like I said, we got over a month yet of growing. Some of these weeds, you can see, probably survived the spray, because you can see how this is like bent over. See that? And it kind of grew back upright. But some of these weeds might have just sprouted since planting. But no, here's another one. See how it was growing sideways? And it sprung back up. So I didn't get a perfect kill, because, you know, some of these weeds are a little tougher, especially when they're as big as what they were. So right here's a quick look at these brassicas on this other side of the corn right here. Same thing. Pretty good amount of browse over here too. So yeah, they're looking really good. I mean, there is some weeds in here, but I really like having these brassicas spread out a little bit thinner like this, instead of like super thick like this. This is a little thick. You can see some of that in there is already starting to turn maybe a little bit yellow and purple from, you know, nutrients deficiencies. And look at how small them leaves are. But then you got a plant out here all by itself, just ginormous leaves, just reaching its full potential. We got turnips here starting. I mean, these things will be the size of softballs in a month. Yeah, this is about perfect spacing right here as you go up this way. Look at this right here. All this is nipped off, and this purple top turnip is literally uprooted and half eaten. I've never seen purple top turnips this early eaten on our property. I mean, every year I'm starting to see more and more deer browse on the brassicas. Years ago, when I first started planting brassicas, they hardly even touched the purple top turnips, even in the wintertime. Like the first year I started planting, I mean, yeah, you'd see a couple kale plants or forage rape plants nipped on, but they left the purple top turnips completely alone all winter. I know I've heard people say that it takes a couple years for the deer to get used to the brassicas being there and to realize that they're a good food source. And I really think that is true in certain scenarios. Because now, man, my brassicas are getting hit harder and harder every single year, earlier in the year. So I'm sure the deer, you know, holding back some of this growth, but you can see the majority of them are kind of untouched. But there is, when you start looking in here, there is definitely some browse in here. These kale plants, they aren't really touching right now, which is good, because it's, you know, allowing these things to grow, to get eaten later on when it's colder. And they're kind of just nipping on a lot of the radishes and some of the turnips right now. All right, so this right here, this is the first year spot. Some of that over there on the farther end, That'll be probably like the third year over there now, but this was all buckthorn last year. We had some of this mowed down. I finished cutting out some of the bigger stumps. There's a big stump right there I got to get out yet, but some of this is kind of growing back. But you can see, surprisingly, I had pretty low germination here too. I had a really nice crop of buckwheat in here, and it was all bare soil right underneath. I should have probably broadcast a little thicker, but we got so much corn and soybeans on the property. These brassicas are just kind of a candy crop. They're not really going to be the carryover winter food source. Now this area, I am going to come through here and I'm going to put in the winter rye to really help green this plot up, because like I said, I'm going to plan on doing no-till here next year. In this first year ground, man, there's like not a single weed in here. It's unbelievable. But then over here, there's maybe a few more weeds. This is like probably the third or fourth year I planted basically from like here over, all the way over. So we got a few more weeds in here, but not too bad. But that's just the way it is. The more years you work a ground, the more years you plant a food plot, the more weeds you're gonna get. Because you never really have 100% weed control no matter what you're planting. Had a little bit of buckwheat here that survived right around this tree here. You can see it's completely nipped off by the deer, probably just for the high moisture content of this stuff, but it's drying down pretty fast now. Yeah, there's plenty of room in here to come in here and put the rye in super thick. I know last year they were hitting these brassicas really hard in this plot. I got a little water hole here for them. I should pull that tarp up. They're looks like they're walking down here drinking some of it because of how dry it's been. But yeah, I'm not seeing a ton of browse in here. There's actually more browse out in those other brassicas. Probably just coming out over there a little bit more than what they come out right here, I guess. I don't know. Well, you can see this dirt is just all churned up from deer walking around in here and turkeys dusting in here. So you got a pretty thick flush of weeds coming up right there. But yeah, I'll take you out to the other plot way over there on the other side of the property by the hill to do a final update on that spot too. That spot's looking really good too. All right, so here's a look at these brassicas up here. This is like the driest section of this whole field here. Nothing ever really does the best up here. You can see these brassicas are not really doing much of anything. And like I said, I think in the last update, there's actually a few soybean plants in here, and they survived the disking when I planted the buckwheat, and they survived the crushing when I planted the brassica. That's pretty crazy. You can see this soybean plant is all mangled up. How it's like twisted around. But you get down here to the little bit better dirt, a little more moisture down here. These brassicas are definitely looking a little better. Okay, right here's a turnip or a radish completely pulled out of the ground and nipped off. Here's a good sized turnip right here. Baseball sized. I mean, we got some weeds in here, but not too bad really on weeds. The same thing, like there's some good spots and some thinner spots. Almost all this, like look at this, these are all weeds that had just germinated since crushing this. Some of this stuff in here might be stuff that sprung back up and survived the spraying, but it looks like the majority of these water hemp plants are all brand new weeds that had, you know, germinated once I crushed all the buckwheat and existing weeds. This is all, you see this is a young weed right here. And this is a little bit harder packed ground here. I'm driving around in here a lot. I don't think I really disturbed the first inch or two of soil too much crushing this. And on some of my wetter plots out that way, I driving around with the cultipacker and tractor, kind of, that's some pretty loose dark ground, and it kind of worked it up roughly. The first inch or two kind of got disturbed in a lot of the plot. That's why a lot of weeds came in over there. But you can see here we got all these little tiny weeds just coming up, and this is pretty hard ground right here, so it's not like it got too worked up by driving around in here. So I mean, no-till works, but to a certain extent. I mean, just look at all these weeds in here. This is probably still slightly less weeds than if I were to just come in here and till this whole area, because the last couple years, man, I've battled weeds in this plot really bad. The weeds have been real thick in here, but I'm happy with how it's turned out. It's gonna be a nice little hidey hole brassica plot hidden from the corn. This is the flag plot with the strips of corn and strips of beans, and this is like the star section of the flag right here when you look at it from above. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Depending on which video comes out, this might be the last or second to last brassica video, I don't know. So I'll show you a quick look at these brassicas coming up in between the bean rows here. I planted these probably first week of August, like August 6th or something, maybe like a week or two after these ones. The last time I came through here and cultivated in between these 38-inch wide row beans here. You can see these things are just getting hammered by the deer. But these brassicas should really fill in this whole section really nicely. And as soon as we get a frost, it'll kill off all these weeds in here, and those weeds will just shrivel up and die, and all you're gonna see is just pods and brassicas. It's gonna look beautiful. All right, so thanks for watching.